Welcome to the podcast. I'm Rosa Coelho, your host, lifestyle entrepreneur, health coach, and speaker. I've gone from being in complete overwhelm, burning the candle at both ends, and watching my health, relationships, and business suffer, to creating a life with more joy, ease, and abundance. If you're ready to let go of the overwhelm, reclaim your health, and push past your comfort zone so that you can unleash your next level of success to create a greater impact, then sit back as we delve into conversations, as well as bring on guests to share with you tools, knowledge, and real action steps to get you there. Listen in, because you never know when you may hear something that changes everything. Hello, beautiful friend, and welcome. Welcome to this time of year that I call like no man's time. It's like that time between Christmas, like the Christmas whole thing is over, and we're kind of maybe waiting for New Year's, or we don't even do New Year's, but like it's just like this weird time of the year where everything feels like it's a bit in slow motion. And at least it always has been for me. And I used to really not like this time of year. It used to bring me like a lot of anxiety. I just couldn't handle being still. And I was like, there's gotta, I wanted to be already moving on to like that feeling of like a clean slate in the new year. And it's just like I have these days to get through, and I don't know, I didn't like it. But a few years ago I just decided to start embracing it and being like, yeah, like it's kind of cool that people are chilled and everyone's maybe catching up on a little rest or whatever it is. So I do love this time of year now, and I use it really now as a time to reflect and to think of the year ahead and what I want to get out of it. Now, I'm not talking New Year's resolutions. If you're a New Year's resolution person, I'm like all for that. Like, I know a lot of people get really down on it. They're just like, trainers especially, like, oh, don't wait for the new year to set your new goal and start your life. Like, I don't know. For me, it's like whatever works for you. Different things work for different people. There are people that have had huge success stories based on their New Year's resolutions. Now, of course, like 95%, I'm making up that number, of people really do nothing. And after like, they kind of forget what their New Year's resolutions are if they don't write it down and whatever. And I mean, that's just normal. That's human nature. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It can really work for people. I personally don't no longer set New Year's resolutions. They really weren't a thing that worked for me. Every year I'd look at that list and I'd be like, okay, I didn't do any of that. But I'm going to share what has worked for me, because it's now worked for me for a few years, which is awesome. And so maybe if it's worked for me, it can work for you too. And what this is this idea of choosing a word that is the theme for the year. And if you listen to, I had an episode last year too, and I think I'll do an episode every year about this because it's just so good to be reminded of. And if you're new to the podcast, then you haven't heard it yet. So my friend Michelle Rogers actually posted about this a few years ago, and it's what she does. And I thought, I think I'm going to actually try that. It sounds intriguing and like it really could work. And it was in a time of my life where I didn't feel like setting big goals. I didn't feel like, I don't know. I was just, to be honest, it was a time where I was going through like a really hard time. The holidays were hard for me. The whole year had been hard for me. And so the thought of like creating New Year's resolutions and goals, it was just like, it was too much. And I was like, great, the last thing I need is to set something that I can't accomplish when things just felt so emotionally difficult. And I mean, difficult like in all areas of my life. And we have that, like, that's the human experience. If we're blessed to be on this earth, like to a certain age, we're going to have years like that. So Michelle chooses a theme for the year. It's a one-word theme. And then what you do is you filter all your decisions through that theme. So the first year I heard it, I remember thinking, I just felt so hard just to feel happiness. And I didn't really want to feel like that ecstatic happiness, but like joy. I was like, how joy is going to be my word. It just came to me so clearly because I so desperately just wanted to feel joy. And I know that in life, sometimes this idea of joy and happiness, it has to be a decision. You have to look for it and find it and give attention to it, because it's not really what's happening in that time. Like, so I started to basically filter everything through that word of joy. So what it meant was I was only saying things that brought joy to me or joy to even the people around me. And so if the answer was that this was not going to feel good and bring joy, I wasn't going to do it. And that year, that actually, it it slowly, everything started to kind of like build and build and build on top of each other. It was like this compound effect. I started looking for joy even in those moments that are hard. I remember one time even feeling joy for my sorrow, feeling joy for like that raw human emotion, feeling joy for the feeling of deep loneliness. And I don't mean joy because that felt good, but because there's an element of that I had to be grateful for. We can only feel these moments of despair because we are human, because we are still here, because there's still something to be here for. And I think of all my beautiful friends and family that are no longer with me and they don't get to experience that. And so sometimes that's where I found the joy. It was even within the pain. But then the other, it wasn't all that hard. There were other moments that was just like, I started to find joy in little things, and it really revolutionized my business because I decided I was going to create. That was the beginning of the Simply Strong program, and I thought I desperately wanted to be coaching women, but I wanted it to be in a way that was going to bring me joy. I had to run this business in a joyful way, and I wanted to bring women together. And so that's when I created Simply Strong. I wanted to really have a program where I could educate women on why they were doing the things that they were doing and why they worked. I wanted them to be able to change their body composition, lose that body fat, feel stronger, build confidence in a way that was joyful for them too, and not in a way that came from like hating their bodies and then wanting to change, but actually loving where they were, finding joy in that and changing because of that. And so Simply Strong came to be, and a lot of the elements of that program came because I was like, okay, what is joyful for me? Is joyful for me getting on a ton of Zoom calls? No, that's not joyful. So how can I make sure that the ladies can connect with me, get the information they need without being like, okay, every, a few times a day or whatever, I'm going to be on at this time. And I don't know, I had to find a way that it worked for me as well as the ladies. And so it did. Like I launched that program 3 times that year as a beta group, and it got better and better and better. And then last year I ran the program fully, and it's just been such a joyful experience for me. So that's how joy really impacted my business and also my personal life. Then last year I was like, oh, okay, well, joy really worked for me the year before. What's this word going to be? And I was like, oh, it just came to me really clearly too. And last year, the word for me was connection. I really had this desperate need to build community in many areas. Like within business, I really wanted to create community for the women that were joining my program around the world. I wanted them to be connected to each other, to our bigger mission of health. I wanted to feel connected to them too. I didn't want them just to come do a program and then they're like, that's the end of it. And all we got out of it was like maybe a physical change. Like I wanted it to be a change that would last long. And so in order to do that, connection's really important. I wanted to build connection within my community, like in my daily life, like offline, apart from business. I wanted to build connection with friends. And so then that's when I kind of found my workout buddies. And I have 2 workout buddies that I work out consistently with. And that's so important for women. I don't mean just from the workout perspective or the accountability, but to connect with other women. Like connection with women, we're built and wired for connection. And within that connection, it's interesting that it brought me so much joy. So it's like I have found that these words start to linger and they don't leave you just because you've chosen a new word. And so connection was a big one for me. My traveling last year, I had 6 weeks throughout Portugal where I traveled all over Portugal, and I really connected with friends, with family, and I planned that trip based on meeting up with friends and reconnecting with them. And everything I did last year was based on connection. And it's so good because even say if there's times where I'm feeling a disconnect somewhere, it's made me a much better communicator. Like I have a friend who I have to say that like our communication was pretty poor, and I take full responsibility on my end because that's all we can do is on our end and is take responsibility for ourselves. And I just became a lot braver in my communication, like in saying things that are harder, saying things that are truthful for me. And that's the only way that you build connection is by having like vulnerable conversations. And whether that's with romantic partners or friendships or family, it's the trying not to like bury those feelings deep down or swallowing your words instead of saying them. And it doesn't mean that in the moment I would say what I was feeling or needed. Like those old patterns take time. But when I realized like by doing that, I'm creating a disconnect between me and the people around me, then I started to reflect and then be able to come back and be like, hey, remember that conversation? I really need to share, like, this is what was happening for me. And so the word of connection has just like been powerful, so powerful for me. And so I'm going to carry that on, the essence of that with me into 2025. And so the word for 2025, I'm not going to share it today. And the reason is that I don't want to influence your word. Like we really have to be vulnerable and choose the word that is the word that resonates with us. But this word's come to me about a month ago. And then once you have your word, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Like I now see it like when I'm watching little videos on Instagram or wherever, or I hear people say the word and I'm like, oh yeah, it's like an affirmation that is truly the right word for me. But again, it's like once we choose it, we see it, right? So whatever reason I'm seeing it more, it's just because I'm more self-aware, or it's just like these little signs. I don't know. I love to believe in little signs too. So I love to believe in it all. But I'm excited for this word because I'm already like, yeah, I feel like I need this in my life. And so whatever the word is, choose it and then look at different areas of your life, like whether it is friendships, romantic partners, business, work life, your health, your connection to yourself, your connection with family, with extended family, your desire for more, like your desire for adventure or whatever it is. Start to look at that word and see how it will apply to many areas. Because what's worked for me is not choosing it just to impact one area of my life. Like I don't want to apply it just to a health goal or just to a relationship goal or just to a business goal. I love that this word can filter because at the end of the day, that's like us. Like we're so interconnected, like body, mind, and spirit. I only say it's just like our health. Our body doesn't work just like, work on your legs and just your legs are getting the benefit, right? Like we're just so interconnected. And so look at your word in that way if you're going to do that. Now, if you do that, if you choose a word, please post it on Instagram and tag me at RocoFit, ROCOFIT, like fitness, and share it. And if you don't feel like sharing the word because it's just personal for you, then just share that you chose a word. I would love to hear that. So come January 1st, tag me again on Instagram, or even tag me beforehand and just say that you're already thinking about it or it's already come to you. I would love to hear that. Okay, beautiful friend. I hope that has helped you in some way. Stay tuned for more podcasts. This podcast is going to keep going into the new year. I still absolutely, all these years later, love coming and chatting with you. If you do have a moment though, please take the time to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or even on Spotify. Allows you now to give a rating. It really helps me so much. I'm terrible at asking for it. I know I have it as a little thing on the closing thing that I add to the end of the podcast, but I just want to ask you personally if you can take some time. I know it could be a little bit of a pain to do it, but it's very encouraging and it does help a lot. Okay, have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for listening in today. I know time is precious and I'm grateful you shared yours with me. It would mean the world to me if you felt an impact, a moment of inspiration, or learned something new. if you would share it with those you care about and leave me a review on iTunes. I'd love to know what spoke to you or what you'd like to hear more of. Your sharing and leaving a review would help so much on this journey to making an impact on as many people as possible. It's worth it. I know from experience, there are moments when something we hear has the possibility of changing everything.